Hello and welcome to a very special Valentine's edition of GH Envy. Today we are discussing romance in Port Charles. The famous couples everyone remembers, my favorites, and your favorites. First of all, I think it's safe to say that in the 80s, General Hospital practically invented the term super couple. Starting with my personal favorites, Luke and Laura, who practically changed the face of daytime with their On the Run storyline. Running away from big bad mobster Frank Smith, finding the gold under the left-handed boy, and eventually getting married in front of an audience of 30 million viewers. Still to this day, the most watched episode of any daytime soap opera ever. I got hooked on watching classic GH on YouTube because of Luke and Laura. Unfortunately, it also made me had super unrealistic expectations about love. Like, why have I not snuck into a department store and danced to a really romantic song that nobody knows? More importantly, why haven't I caught wind of a bad guy trying to take over the world with a weather machine? When am I gonna love someone as much as Luke loved Laura? And when is someone gonna love me as much as Laura loved Luke? Aww. Anyway, after that, GH was popping out super couples left, right, and center in the 80s. Frisco and Felicia, Robert and Holly, Sean and Tiffany, Duke and Anna. I don't know how many of you current GH fans out there actually go back and look at these storylines, but if you haven't, you really need to. If you want to be entertained for hours on end and get pulled in by a love story, you need to check all of them out. Each of these couples had a perfect balance of romance, drama, hilarity, and adventure. While the style of soaps started to change in the 90s, GH still had no problem telling romantic tales. Luke and Laura came back to the show with a kid in tow, still had their legions of fans. However, Sonny and Brenda were the new super couple in town. Their romance was a whole different kind of intense. While wedges came between them in the form of Ricky Martin and Lily, their storyline would eventually bring us to Puerto Rico, where viewers watched the two of them escape the bad guys by jumping onto the roof of a tram, hitching a ride with Luke Spencer on a speedboat, and jumping out of the water and making out on the beach. Anyone remember the wire scene?
Stop it! I love you! Stop it! He said he don't really love me! No! Get out! But I love you! You're turning me into my stepfather! Is that what you want? No!
The two of them were absolute fire on screen. Natural chemistry, beautiful to watch. And while Sonny and Brenda were bringing the drama, we also got some fun couples in the 90s. Ned and Lois, Kevin and Lucy. At the same time, we got some heartbreaking love stories in the form of Robin and Stone. Stone had contracted AIDS, making their love story really difficult to watch, knowing that while romance was blossoming, that it would eventually come to an end. I see you, Robin.
I see you.
Absolute tearjerker. In those days, GH did a really good job at telling meaty storylines that also educated the audience. They were definitely not afraid to take on very controversial topics. In the late 90s, GH had a lot of young romance blossoming in the form of Liz and Lucky, Emily and Xander, Emily and Nicholas, and of course in the 2000s when great couples were far and few between, we did get some gems. You already know about my love of Robin and Patrick, and you also know that I have a very soft spot for J-Sam. Speaking of which, how great was this year's Valentine's episode? We got a J-Sam kiss, what? Anyway, I asked the GH fandom on Tumblr to send me their favorite couples and their favorite moments, so I'm gonna read them right now. Favorite GH couples, Liz and Lucky, especially round one in the late 90s, also only when Jonathan Jackson is playing him. Fair enough, I agree that nothing beats the original Lucky and Liz. Even though they brought Jonathan Jackson back to play Lucky Spencer just a few years ago, it was in the midst of a train wreck affair with his brother. In the 90s, however, Lucky saved Elizabeth, and eventually he made her whole again. It was a beautiful, beautiful love story and really well written, and she had his heart. It was a permanent lock.
It's a permanent lock.
Everything he was in love with her. They had each other's souls, their minds, their bodies and spirits, and they thought that would never change. But it's a soap, and it did. Such is the soap world that they live in. Faith Lee writes, "You asked, I have so many answers. Any J-Sam moment, particularly 2009, 2010 moments. Valentine's Day, when he rescues her, anytime, particularly with Jerry Jacks. I also liked Maxine Spinelli and their non-wedding. Johnny and Lulu with Julie, Lulu and Dante, the early years also with Julie, Ethan and Chrissy. I'll stop now before I go nuts." Faith Lee and I had a good conversation after that, and oh my god, honestly, 2009 was one of my favorite years for GH. The show had become a lot more balanced than it had been. There was some lightheartedness and a little bit of cheese, but just the perfect amount of cheese. and Spixie! Spinelli and Maxie were magical in 2009. Oh my god, when he sang I Wanna Know What Love Is to her, and then he took her back to Jason's apartment. They were making love upstairs and knocking everything over, and Jason and Sam were just laughing at the bottom. Close your eyes and wander. It was so great. I love that it was necessary, like, breathing scene between J-Sam. Not just what he said, but them actually having a conversation for the first time in a long time of Jason pushing her away. Definitely one of my faves.
It wasn't a choice. It's necessary, like breathing.
There's always a choice.
I had to remind myself of that scene. The angst between Jason and Sam during that whole time was really intense. Basically dumping her for her own good and her falling apart over it. But I love how honest the scene was. I always love when any couple describes how they feel about each other. Especially when what they're saying is what we actually seen on screen. That's how you know when there's good storytelling going on. I mean, you could tell how natural Jason's love was for Sam. You could tell that it was necessary, that it was like breathing. So flash forward to 2016. If I'm being honest, this show is in a major funk right now, especially when it comes to romance. Jason and Sam is about the only thing they're doing right at this point. Yeah, there's Sunny and Carly, but they're just like the default couple, like, you know, they're there and that's normal and Then they're trying to sell Nicholas and Hayden as a really romantic couple, but it's really weird because Nicholas isn't himself, and that's weird, and Hayden is Rachel and might be falling in love with him, but might not be, but they're trying to sell it like she is, and at the same time they're trying to sell it like she isn't, which is weird. I can't get on board with Nina and Franco because Franco. Lulu and Dante are a bust, and Maxie and Nathan are too busy playing Cupid for Lulu and Dante to have their own storylines going on. Mac and Felicia are practically non-existent, and any other couple on the show right now is kind of like brand new. They're like casually dating, there's not really much story. I want to be able to see a new couple blossom. I want to see an actual love story get told from the beginning, but I want conflict, and when I mean conflict, I don't mean another love triangle or getting jealous over a friendship. I want something creative. Put the couple in a situation that involves them working together and solving a conflict, and make it intense. Don't be afraid to show couples doing more than just making love in a montage. Make them kiss in the rain, let them dance in a department store after hours. Have them see each other at their most vulnerable moment, so that we, the audience, can gush over the fact that they're saving each other from themselves. Hell, let them look for some lost treasure on an island, even if it's a low-budget crappy set island. I'll still watch. Hashtag it. Hashtag bring back love in the afternoon. I want to wish all of you a very happy Valentine's Day. I hope you guys enjoyed it, whether you're single or not. If you're in a relationship, don't let this one day be the only day that you're going to do something to your significant other. And if you're single, don't mope around. Just watch porn. Anyway, have a good one.
Fantasy.